And we're back with a quick tutorial nugget on food. Now, this is going to be, I don't want to say controversial, just brutally frank. Most of the foods suck. Yeah, the best foods are, if you ever ask what food should I use, the main answers you're going to get are mealwood and lots of mealwood, mushrooms, omelets, barbecue. They're usually the ones you'll get given, and there's a reason you get told all four of those. They take no water. That's the big bonus of all of them. So, for example, this mealwood here, yes, it has terrible quality. You're going to be sitting on, where is this mealwood here? Yes, you can eat that mealwood, and your duplicants will only get, oh, -1 morale from eating it. Yeah, -1 morale. But morale is usually not the biggest deal. Early on, even, you're still going to have enough rooms. There's a latrine for +1, a barracks for +1, and a great hall for +6. That's +8 morale. We don't care if we're losing one for the food. And for this food, it only takes dirt to use it, so that's 637 tons of dirt. I can live on this for a ridiculous amount of time. Assuming I stop at, say, 10 duplicants, okay, I'd never stop at 10, but if you did stop at 10 duplicants, you would have enough dirt just in that pile alone to keep your duplicants alive for 1200 cycles. That's 1200 cycles your dupes can survive on that, just with 600 tons of dirt. And that's before we start composting stuff and doing all sorts of other things. There's other ways to get even more dirt to extend that. But you don't need to because slime exists and slime allows you to run mushrooms. Dust caps are unbelievably efficient. Just 20 tons of slime will allow you to feed about 10 duplicants for 180 cycles. Just 20 tons of the stuff allows you to feed the duplicants for 180 cycles. That's ridiculous on fried mushrooms. And fried mushrooms have quite a good food. Where's the morale bonus on these things? Oh, I haven't cooked any yet. I believe it's +2 or something like that for morale. So they're actually pretty decent. The only downside is you have to grow them in carbon dioxide, and as well as that, the slime has to be kept pressurized, as in stick it in a storage bin and then put in some water. There's 50 kilos of water there. 2 kilos of water would be sufficient, but go with your heart. This means I could remove that tile and put in some more storage bins. Just keep the slime nearby, store it in water so it doesn't off gas. It'll probably have slime lung or something in it. You just want to prevent that getting out. And you can keep your duplicants fed for thousands of cycles with the amount of slime that's on most maps. They're the two main food groups. The third food group is usually hatches for meat and eggs. Well, meat or eggs. Pips, they're still relatively new, but you might be able to ranch pips for their eggs. Their eggs are quite good. However, they're the main food sources. All the rest, unfortunately, require water, which is usually something you really care about early on. So you're not going to be switching into bristleberries unless it's only temporary. I've temporarily gone to bristleberries just to cut down on labor requirements while I transitioned over to another food source. Outside of that, you're looking at sleet wheat. Sleet wheat is a late game food. Yeah, by the time you've got to that, you're going to have your food needs sorted anyway. Sleet wheat is more of it's a status crop more than anything else. There's plenty of ways to get enough morale without going into food. All the later food sources are just status stuff. Early game, mealwood or slime for mushrooms, or go straight into hatch farming. Personally, I'm a rancher. I'm rancher for life, but when it comes to food crops, they're your only choices. Oh, to be brutally clear on mealwood, never ever cook it into lice loaf. I used to do that at the start myself because it gave extra calories. The water cost is not worth it. Paying 50 kilos of water for there's extra couple of hundred calories or what, 400 calories, not worth it at all. Now, so I am aware that this sounds like a very bleak assessment. Mealwood, mushrooms, meat, and eggs. Why why am I so pessimistic? It's not pessimism, just pragmatism. When it comes to supporting a duplicant, the main cost is going to be oxygen. And algae and rust, unless you do some really crazy stuff, run out eventually, which means you will always be switching over to water, and water will always be the limiting factor on every map. So unless you end up swimming in water by early to mid game because you find some lucky vents or geysers, usually if you get your hands on more water, it's more cost efficient to just hire more duplicants. Use that water to make more oxygen for the duplicants. For example, a gristleberry, if you fed a duplicant on gristleberry, it's about 60 kilos of water per cycle. That's almost as much water as it takes where you could hire another duplicant, provide them with oxygen from that water, and then just keep feeding them on mealwood or some other muck. And that way you've got more labor for the same cost. So cost efficiency wise, it's usually just better to take all the water you've got and use it to hire as many dupes as you can so you have more labor. More oxygen, more duplicants, more labor to get stuff done to expand your base even faster. Now, of course, if you are swimming in water or something along those lines, you can switch into other foods. And with the addition of pips, we now have wild planting, so you can plant wild crops and do all sorts of things. That's wonderful. But they're usually more going to be a mid to late game expenditure. You can get by on wild crops if you keep a small population. The main takeaway I'm trying to get you to take from this is don't care about morale when it comes to food. There's usually so many ways to get morale based on buildings and the new nature parks that you can pretty much just ignore food as a morale quantity. It should just be sustenance for keeping your dupes alive. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you can't spend a bunch of resources getting food and upgrading your food to being really nice. That's fine, just make sure you have the water resources on the map before you commit. If you have to choose between mealwood and mushrooms, I usually would prefer mushrooms due to their higher range of temperatures. They can survive 5 degrees up to 35. Mealwood caps out at 30°C, which can lead to problems if your base gets a little bit warm. And if you want to go ultra warm, then you should probably switch to critters. Hatches can live up to 70°C. Okay, sorry, I can't help myself, but I just have to plug ranching way too much. This is definitely a short nugget for what should be a rather large topic considering the sheer quantity of foods available. But a good thing resource would be to just Google oxygen not included food guide. It will bring you on to the oxygen not included Gamepedia page. This is the page, and if you scroll down, you'll find this section and requirements per 1,000 calories per cycle. That's just how much food it costs to feed one duplicate, how much food it costs to feed one duplicate. And I've just sorted it here by total water. You'll notice mush bar is the most expensive in terms of water. Then comes stuffed berry, then comes bristleberry, then comes mush fry. Oh, bristleberry was 75 kilos. Oh no, that's not gristleberry, it's bristleberry. Gristleberry is 60 kilos. I wasn't remembering. Mush fry down here at 71, pepper bread at 67. These are all extremely water expensive foods. Berry sludge, 55, frost bun, 50. Why is mushroom wrap here? I sorted by water. Oh, never mind. Until you get down to about lice loaf. Lice loaf costs about 30 kilos of water, but you still wouldn't make lice loaf. You'd be better off spending eating the mealwood raw. It also tells you how many plants you need to sustain each of these. Where is it? Food calorie plants. Yes, how many of each plant you're going to need if you decide to set it up that way. For example, the easiest one would be meal lice. You need 5 mealwood plants, and that will produce you all the meal lice you need to feed one duplicate. Though you should really go a little bit over. I mean, if you're running 10 duplicates, I wouldn't run 50 mealwood. I'd run 53, 54 because, there's going to be downtime. This will really help you narrow down why you should pick a different food over another one. Just sort by water and go through it, or sort by dirt and go through it as well. For some reason, the nosh bean or the tofu one doesn't really have. I don't think that's updated correctly. There should be at least 50 kilos of water required to make tofu. It's at least 15 or 20 kilos to have 1,000 calories of tofu. I don't know, that one's off. But you notice here at the bottom, sushi, surf and turf, cooked fish, barbecue, omelets, paku fillet, fried mushroom, all of these don't have any water cost. This is why they're so popular. This is why they are heavily recommended. That is my assessment of the status of food crops in the game. I know some people will not agree, but I would point out if you're trying to live on wild crops and you're using pips to plant them, that's fine. You can totally arrange that. It's just usually very difficult to get enough of them early on unless you grow really slowly to really expand your base. I prefer to grow a little bit faster, which means I'm going to be planting and harvesting foods. If you want to play much slower, that's perfectly fine. Otherwise, switch to hatches. I think hatches are a far better food source than all of these, plus they give you coal, except for maybe mushrooms. Mushrooms are definitely a very powerful food. I'm quite happy with those. Anyway, I hope this was at least mildly informative for you. Make sure to note down the website. I'll put a link in the description as well. And good luck.